Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Edge of Greatness podcast. I'm your host, Charles Schultz, and today is episode 163. And I'm joined today by a very special guest, Tyler Todt. Tyler is an entrepreneur who's on a quest to buy back his time, spread positivity, and be a fit dad, spreading love, spreading joy, and in the process has built himself quite the community of followers. On Twitter, he's surpassed over, I want to say at this point, 180K. And it's easy to see why. Everything he does is positive. Everything he does is uplifting. It's encouraging. He spreads his love around. He shares his vast network with all the people he connects with. And it's just an incredible opportunity to have a conversation with him today. I hope you enjoy and pick up some pointers. Before we jump into that, I just want to say, if this is your first time, thank you so much for joining me. If you've been here for a while, I enjoy hanging out with you. If you're looking for more ways to hang out with me, I have a couple different things that I can do to spend more time with you. I do some coaching. I do some workshops. I'll speak. If you have a need or a want to spend a little more time with me, go ahead and shoot me an email, charles@theedgeofgreatnessproject.com. And let's connect. I'd like to hear how I might be of service for you. But for today, if you have a chance, share this episode with a friend, hit that subscribe button, and enjoy my conversation with Tyler Todt.
Be a sponge, and then bring the juice.
By focusing on your improvement, by focusing on your progress, and eliminating any fixed mindset that you may have and acts of perfectionism, then you encourage your own mastery.
On some level, we do what we want to do 24 hours a day. Now, sometimes it may not seem like that, but if I'm choosing to work instead of sleep, what I'm actually saying is keeping my job is more important than sleeping.
I'm tired of this. I'm tired of getting beat. What can I do to get over this hump? So mentally, that's when I kind of put that forefront, like, hey, it's either all or nothing.
I like to put failure in quotations because I don't believe that failure is true failure if you're looking at it with the right mindset.
The truth is, the journey to greatness is hard. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes focus, and every day you have to decide what you value, what you want to pursue, and what you want to achieve. And if you dig deep enough, if you push hard enough, we all have what it takes to be great. Welcome to the Edge of Greatness. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Edge of Greatness podcast. I'm your host, Charles Schultz, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. Positivity himself, fit dad, coach, entrepreneur, leader. I love it, my man, Tyler Todt. Tyler, thank you so much for taking time to join me today.
Thanks, Charles, man. It's an honor to be on here, brother. I have a pretty big community at this point, but I would say that every single day I make it a point to come to your posts, man. I love all the stuff that you put out. You can rival me as Mr. Positivity as well, man. So
I appreciate that. That's awesome. That's awesome. I want to start here. What's with the Ty Romper moniker? Where did that come from?
Man. Yeah, it's pretty funny. So I was a camp counselor back when I was in 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. Probably the favorite job I've ever had, to be honest, man. I just played with 4th and 5th graders all day, all summer long, and I couldn't remember names. I just always been terrible with names, man. And so I would always just call the kids little rompers. I'd be like, hey, come here, little romper. Hey, little romper. And so for some reason, one of the other counselors just started calling me Ty Romper. And then I created a PokerStar account that summer when I was 18 or 19, and then that became my screen name in poker, which I went on to play professionally for 10 years. And so everybody just started calling me Ty Romper. So I don't know, man. That's kind of where it came from.
I love it. Nicknames are the best. The stories behind them and why they're created and how they come about, that stuff fires me up. But speaking of jobs, you've done some pretty interesting stuff over the course of your lifespan as a working man. But I want to know, talk to me about the transition between the traditional lifestyle of being an employee, going the corporate route, to now this new evolution of entrepreneur, solopreneur, creating content, and that journey, and what brought that on?
Yeah, man. So, again, I was a professional poker player for 10 years. So I dropped out of school at 20. My parents were thrilled about that. And then, did that for a decade, a lot of success. Then some laws changed in the states where you couldn't do that anymore. When I was about 27, 28. So then I meet my now wife, and we're going to move back to our hometown. We get pregnant on the honeymoon. And so it's like, look, the closest casino is 4 hours away. I'm not going to be that dad that's going to be, flying to Vegas every week and leaving his family. So I needed something else. So I went back to school and just took the first job that I could really get, which was a part-time bank teller. But I went in with pretty good energy and positive and really willing to learn, I would say. And within 2 weeks, I got promoted. And then like 4 months after that, I got promoted again. And within a year and a half, I went from 14 out of 14 on the totem pole to running the entire shop and having a staff of 14 under me. And I really enjoyed aspects of that job. I liked the people development aspect of it. I liked that I could be a people person. I had 200 conversations a day, leading a bank, right? Building relationships with clients and things like that. The aspect of it I hated, to be quite honest, was I had to leave my house every morning at 5:30 if I was going to hit the gym first, and I didn't get home until 6:30. So there's the majority of my day, and this was 5 to 6 days a week, I'm gone. And so, when my daughter started getting that age, man, I remember her being about 3, and she said to me one morning with tears in her eyes, "Daddy, when will you be home? Is it going to be late again?" And I looked at her and I said, "Yeah, Daddy has to work." And my wife is so great. I remember her being in the background saying, "The reason we have this house is because Daddy works, and say thanks to Daddy and all this." And I got in my car, I just started sobbing, man. I really did. And I've been doing this for a couple years at this point now. And just driving to work, I remember, meeting a lot of the managers and stuff. And that was just normal life. You got 2 or 3 weeks vacation every year, but you were working 45, 50 hours a week. And with the commute and with your lunch break and all this, you were just gone a lot. And I just remember sitting my wife down about 2 years into this. And I sat her down one night and I said, I don't want this to be our life. I don't. I said, we on paper, we look great. We got nice cars. We got a nice home. Everything's cushy and comfortable, but I'm not happy. I'm not thrilled with where the direction of our life's going. And she said, well, I'd like you to be around more too. Well, how do we make that happen? Right. So I didn't have Twitter or social media, any of that in mind. To be honest, at the time, I thought, well, maybe I'll start playing poker when my kid goes to bed and buy some freedom back that way, and we'll invest more. So her and I literally got out a notebook, pen and paper, and we said, here's what we would need in the bank. Here's what maybe we would need passively. So let's start to make this work. You know what? I don't accept that I'm going to work till I'm 62 and then retire. That's not going to be our life. Maybe we can even just move that back 10 years and maybe it's 52, right? That's how we started this thing. And so, dude, we were hustlers, man. My wife, number one, she would wake up every morning and she would teach English to Chinese kids in Beijing. she'd make $20 half an hour for that. And she'd do that for a couple hours. So boom, we got 40 extra bucks a day right there, right? We just invest all that. I'd play poker every night. We'd invest a couple thousand a month. We'd invest all that. We started going to Goodwill. Every time I had a day off, I'd strategically put my days off on Tuesday. And we'd go, and Goodwill had half off days. We'd buy toys and we'd flip them on Facebook and Amazon. We started making a couple thousand extra bucks, every few months on that. So we just had all these little ideas, man, that we started doing. And we started, okay, every 4 to 5 grand we get invested, that's 1 month less of my life we bought back. That's the way we started looking at it. So then we started thinking, well, how can we invest that into passive income and start getting paid? And then lo and behold, we did this for a couple years. And all of a sudden, one day, man, I feel this tug. Like, I can't let it go. You should start sharing your life, sharing your journey. Okay. So I find a couple guys on Twitter. Zach Hommel. Zuby is the one that brought me to Twitter with his epic deadlift where he broke the British world record. and all of a sudden, man, I Ryan Stevens, Big Money Dave, a couple of these guys, and I just said, I'm going to look at what they're doing. And if they're doing this, to some degree, I can do the same, right? So I hired Zach Hommel as a mentor and a coach, and I started just posting my life and sharing my life, and he started teaching me how to monetize some of those things. And so before I knew it, I had built an audience of a few thousand, wrote an ebook. I remember the first time I sold that ebook for $14. I woke up the next day and I'm $14, $12.50 after Gumroad takes their fee. But this is amazing, right? So I didn't have a lot of plans to make this a career. What really happened is then I had about 12,000, 14,000 followers, and a bunch of guys started asking me, will you coach me? Hey, man, I see that you're at the gym every day. I see that, you're working this job you don't love, but you're really positive about it. I see that you're an intentional dad. I see that you have these habits and this mindset. And, I would like you to coach me. I didn't know what being a coach was, man. So I, again, hired Zach Hommel again and said, hey, teach me how to be a coach. And so we'd have coaching calls. And the first couple guys, I think, were $25 a month. I think I charged them. And I did that for a few months and then kind of up my skill set. And then, okay, man, I think I can be $100 a month coach, right? Okay, we up our skill set. We just keep going and go. And now I can start a group coaching. I've written 5 books since, and now I get paid to speak every now and then. And so it's all just kind of snowballed for me, man, I would say I had this big plan 5-6 years ago with my wife, and then just taking little step by little step. And I feel like God opened the right doors, introduced me to the right people at the right time. But it all started with that intention of this isn't going to be our life. This isn't going to be our story. And then every day waking up with that mindset, like to the point of pretty close to obsession, I would say. I'd have somebody like, hey, man, do you want to, buy my daughter's popcorn thing? And it was $26. And I'm like, no. Like that puts me $26 farther away from escaping this job, right? So me and my wife got really intentional and really obsessed about it until we could create the life that we want. And that life now includes, her and I walking together for 10 hours a week, man. And me working with people on things I love, around things I love. So I would say mission accomplished from where we started. Still a long way to go. I feel like I'm still in inning 1 or 2, but super grateful, man.
No, I can absolutely relate, especially to the story with your daughter, because you're familiar with my story. My listeners know that I've recently stepped away from my gym that I'd been building for over a decade, and it was because my daughter was like, are you home? Oh, Daddy's back. Like it was a surprise to see me. And so I totally appreciate that. And I love the intentionality and the purpose to each little thing you did and how you just kind of scraped it together to start, because I feel that and I understand what that's all about. Talk to me about the value of time now that you've got more of it and what that means to you to know that your time is in your hands, not someone else's.
Yeah, man, that's everything. I feel like, we don't have the most money in the bank for sure of people that I know and network with and things like that. But I feel like the richest guy, man. I really do, because my wife and I can schedule and structure our days exactly how we choose. And, we just got back from Utah for 3.5 days where we rented out an old gymnasium, a closed gymnastics studio. And we took sleeping bags and just played until we passed out. Right. But I didn't have to ask anybody for that. I did the first time I took an impromptu little weekend getaway with the family and didn't have to make sure I had the Saturday off or move things around. That was where it really clicked, man, that, being time rich is a lot more important to me than being rich. So, this is a free shirt I got from Zach Hommel. I drive a 10-year-old car. Again, we invest in assets that try and make us more money, whether that be we own farmland, other little instruments and things like that, even the ebooks and courses that are pretty passive at this point. But I don't have a goal of, I want to make $2 million, $5 million. I could care less about that, man, to be honest. If our basic needs are met and me and my wife get to spend the days how we want, and I'm with my kids and I never miss one of my daughter's recitals, my daughter will perform a couple times a month at her school. I get to be at all those. To me, that's worth more than anything, right? Driving a nice car or whatever that is. And I think, to be honest, I was in this rat race. Too many people get caught up in it when I was a professional poker player. Bro, I made over $1 million playing poker. I made 1.7 million looking back. I didn't keep but 100,000 of that, 150,000 of that, because I had a brand new Mercedes, because I lived this lifestyle, right? And when I look back at how foolish that is, that I actually traded the most valuable resource we have on this planet, which is time. For what? For a fancy car so other people thought I looked cool? For what? I don't even know why, And so me and my wife just got super intentional. How can we continue to downgrade our lifestyle even as our income goes up? Like I got promoted 5 times at branches and running bigger brands. My income kept going up, bigger bonuses, things like this. We continued to downgrade our lifestyle and still do, to the point where it's like pretty embarrassing how much we can run our family by, a family of 5 every month. But my wife and I just don't, material things don't really matter as much. We don't get each other gifts. We love time. That's what we love. And we even invest our money in, we have a babysitter that comes 3 days a week. So my wife and I can take those walks. So we can go grab coffee and go grab dinner and go do those things and really invest in each other. And I feel like if we have that strong unit and we're teaching our kids, that's really the most valuable thing. And money, all it is a tool to buy you time. And when you start to think like that, man, Millionaire Next Door was a book that really blew my mind about that it's possible for anybody. But yeah, being time rich is my goal, man. And we're pretty close to getting there.
I love it. I love it. Talk to me about how you coach somebody to break free from the stigmas of what rich is, what society tells us we should be doing versus what you believe is the right path to create a happy, sustainable, fulfilled life.
Yeah, man, that's a great question. And I think most of us chase stuff. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? Like I actually thought I was doing a great job as a husband my first year of marriage because I got promoted 3 times, but I wasn't home. And then when me and my wife's marriage started to drift apart, and she said, well, we haven't been on a date in a year. Like, I feel like, you show up and then you do work again at night. Like it's, this and that. And so I think we just chase a lot of the wrong stuff. And I think we're programmed from a young age, especially men, to think, well, if we're making money, we're doing enough. And it's a lie, in my opinion, that we have to unlearn as adults. I always tell you, man, I hopped on a call with a billionaire off of Twitter. He followed me for a while and said, dude, I'd love to connect. He actually booked a couple coaching calls with me. And I'll never forget this, man. One of our first calls, he said, Ty, I'm worth $1.2 billion. He goes, I'm 49 years old. He goes, I have 5 homes. I have every fancy toy you could ever imagine. And he goes, I'm the most stressed out, ungrateful, miserable guy on the planet. I work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. I can't turn it off. I don't know how. I'm divorced, not a great relationship with this, with kids. I don't know how to stop. And I remember saying to him, well, what happens if you just don't work tomorrow? Like, what happens if you just take back control of your time? And it scared him, to be honest. He said, he goes, I feel poor in my circle. Because he goes, I hang out with guys who have 5 billion. And their yacht is 200 feet. Mine's only 120. And I thought, man, you have so much to unlearn, right? And that's when you talk about what real wealth is. And for this guy, if he didn't work another day in his life, his kids were still taken care of. So what's the point, right? And you have to start thinking in terms of that. And I love now, like, dude, if we're going to buy a car and it costs $30,000 and I make $4,000 a month, in essence, I'm trading 7.5 months of my life, 9, 10 months after I finance it just for that car, right? And you have to start thinking in terms of that. When you're trading your dollars for time, what's it really mean, right? And so to me, man, having that opportunity, I remember when that guy told me that, it hit me like a dagger. Like, holy cow, man, like that, everybody wants to be a billionaire, right? And to hear an actual billionaire say, dude, I'm so unhappy, I'm miserable. And that's why, like, even now, man, I think everybody has their purpose and their place. And for some people, I really believe God puts it in them to be an Elon Musk and to say, dude, you're going to change the world with like all shooting rockets into Mars and all these things, right? But I think for most of us, the way we can impact the world truly the best is to do exactly what you're doing, man. To be home with your family, to have a locked in, on fire marriage, and your kids are surrounded and it's full of love and happiness, and you don't have all the fanciest toys, but dude, your kids will remember that, all those moments that you guys create together, all the nightly walks, all the fun activities you do. That's stuff that will go with them forever too.
Yeah, no, I feel that. And I agree that because we've been taught to chase money, that sometimes we create miserable lives trying to catch the money. And it just puts us at a very difficult spot because on paper we look like we're winning, but in life we're just really struggling. So I want to come back to your shirt, the do hard things, because I think that's one, I love this saying. I created a mug for myself that says the exact same thing. And I love that mantra, but what I love most about it is that you live it. Because recently you just did 5 Murphs and I want to dive into some of the things that you learned about yourself going through something that most people struggle to do once in a single year. You do it once to on Veterans Day, right? You do it the one time. You did it 5 in a row. Talk to me about what you learned in those 5.
Yeah, man. The training leading up to it's where the battle's won, right? And so there were so many days, bro, where like my alarm would go off at like 4:50, and I'm like, okay, on the agenda today we're doing 800 push-ups and like, 200 pull-ups, and I'm just like, oh, dude, I do not want to do this, But for 4 months, I had a pretty rigid planning schedule, and so I just stuck with it day in and day out, right? So I'm so happy to now not be doing body weight to get actually back to the gym. But it was just, I puked many times, man. I remember the first time I did back-to-back Murphs where I just said, okay, I'm going to hit one and no rest, hit the next. Dude, I threw up for like 30 minutes. I couldn't leave the bathroom. Okay, next weekend we're going to try this again. What did we learn, right? Well, I need to eat more. I was fasted for some reason, trying to do 2 Murphs. Idiot move, man, right? So, okay, let's eat a big breakfast and then go try, right? And so you just keep learning. You just keep getting a little bit better. And that's what I love, these big challenges. Because what it really teaches you is again, man, starting a business and having 180 some thousand followers on Twitter and communities that I have and the coaching and all, it didn't happen just, oh, boom, like this. It's like little win, loss, little win, loss, little win, loss, win. You're constantly doing, and that's how this felt with the Murphs. During the 4.5 months of training, there was probably 5 times where I told my wife, dude, there's no way I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to puke. I might die. I remember telling her, like, I'm not the kind of guy who quits. So, like, maybe I should update my will before I do this. Like, I don't know. Like, well, if I'm constantly puking and I keep going, I don't know what happens, And so, there was levels of doubt. There was so many times where I thought, like, dude, nobody cares about this. Like, let's be honest. Like, the whole world, the sun comes up the next day if I do it or not. My kids don't care. My wife still loves me the same. Like, it doesn't really matter to anybody but me. But then it goes back to, well, I promised myself this. This is something I wanted to do, right? I want to see what I'm made of. And in those moments, man, of the training where you puke and then you go back and finish. Like, dude, you learn things about yourself in those moments that when other things happen, your kid wakes you up in the middle of the night. Not that big of a deal, man. Because you've put yourself through those hard things. When life inevitably comes at you in a hard way, you've already put yourself through the test, man. And so I get cut off in traffic now, dude. Give them a wave, man. I've already put myself through the fire. And I think, you know this better than anybody too, but we live in a society of comfort now. And this is why I set these challenges and why I do these things. Because, man, if you don't, like, life is just so easy, man. I can push a button and have food delivered in 5 minutes. We don't have TV, but if you did, you got 5,000 channels. You can watch anything you want and be entertained mindlessly, right? Like, life is just so easy. We're in a climate-controlled house, in a climate-controlled shower, in a climate-controlled car. If it's ever between 68 and 72, people are miserable now, right? So it's, why do you sit in the sauna? Why do you do cold plunges? Why do you go do sprints outside when it's 30 and shirtless, right? Like, you do those things because life is just soft right now. And I think we're seeing that in our country, especially. We're seeing the decline of testosterone levels. We're seeing the decline of real men because, man, life is just so easy. We sit in an office all day, climate-controlled car. Then we sit on the couch. We watch TV, right? We push the button and order food. And there's never anything hard and difficult. And so when things do inevitably get hard, which is going to happen in life, dude, if you haven't put yourself through that, like, life is just going to beat you down.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that, and I agree that we've gotten to a point where comfort is what we seek instead of the difficulty. We look for the easy path, we look for the shortcut, we look for the comfortable place to sit, and doing the hard thing, I think, is the only way out of it. And learning how to do the hard thing is the only way to move forward. If we want to reach our full potential, we have to go that route. I love the 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, because I feel that right now. Like, I keep watching my Twitter account. This is funny. I've been flirting with 1,200 followers for like the last 3 weeks, where I'd get like 1199, 1,200, 1,201, 1198, 1197. I'm just like, what's happening right now? Why am I all over the place? I just get over that hump. But how do you handle the forward, backward? Because a lot of people struggle where they think that going backwards means they're not doing the right things. But as you and I know, when we start to push ourselves, there's always going to be little plateau points. There's always going to be little downward slides before big upward swings. So how do you manage those moments where it feels like you're not making progress? It feels like you're going backwards. It feels like you're not doing the right thing, but you got to keep going. How do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things on this. I think one, poker really developed me for this because poker's a game where you can do everything correct and still lose a lot of money, right? So all you're doing in poker is tilting the odds in your favor constantly, but math is going to dictate. And I had days where I did everything perfect and lost 10 grand. That was just my life for a decade, right? So you get hardened over this at time. Like when I was really young, 21, 22, I'd lose a big pot, somebody get lucky, and I'd punch a hole through the door, dude, or something, And then, I remember having a hard talk with myself at age 23, and I said, if I'm going to do this for a job, I have to get mentally stronger. Like, I don't see guys that are at the top of this profession doing this, so I can't do that. And so really a lot of mental work happened in my early 20s and then continued throughout. But now I reframe it in my head as great, good. That Jocko Willink, right? Like, good. And we're in a season now of Twitter. I'm with you. I used to grow about 8,000 to 10,000 followers a month. In 3 weeks, I have not grown a follower. In fact, lost some. And I've had viral posts. I've had tweets that have gotten 2 million views. For some reason, I think they're chopping down all the bots, or I don't know what it is, right? But I just go back to, all right, good. Because you know what's going to happen, man? A bunch of people that aren't as committed as me and you are going to quit. They're going to fall off, and I'll keep going. I know and I'll keep putting in the work day in and day out and day in and day out. No matter what, I'll keep refining my process, getting a little better. And so I reframe that as good. And I also have brainwashed myself to believe everything works for me. Everything. So little story here, man. When I first thought I'm going to leave the bank, I have a decent Twitter following. Another awesome Twitter coach asked me to start a community with him and 3 other guys. It was called Avalon Fitness. We were going to make all the money, man. We were going to do it. For 7 months, every single day, I wrote a couple articles in this community. 7 months. I believe in that 7 months, we made something like $430 total. We just couldn't get anybody to join the community. All kinds of things were wrong with it, right? And so people would look at that and say, well, what a failure, man. You invested 7 months of all that time and like energy and all that, and nothing came from it. And I look back on that area of my life as the most important area and time in my life now, because I never wrote in high school or college. To be honest, I paid people to do my papers for me. And so I was a terrible writer. And now I wouldn't have threads that reach 10 million people. I wouldn't have these viral content. I became and I needed that step to become a better writer. And so I believe, to be honest, that God opened that door for me to use that season of my life, 7 months spent. You know how hard it is to get up the 200th day that you're not making any money and still write the articles and still pour in and do your best? Not easy, right? Most people quit before that. But I just have always had that long-term vision of this is for me. I see it. And if I need to pivot, I will. Like, I'm not dumb. I still wouldn't be doing Avalon Fitness 3 years later, 5 years later, right? If it was making nothing. But 4 seasons, you're just going to have that, man. And I believe God uses that and develops that. And it's a stepping stone. Like my coach, Zach, always said, like, you can't skip steps. There's certain times, man, where you have to go through that grind, and it's developing you for the next step. And so I've always believed that. And I just, in a Jocko voice, man, say, good, good.
Yeah, there's definitely a few things in there that I appreciate, and the consistency piece is big, because having been a part of your community, having worked with you a little bit, and seeing how I keep showing up, but the people that you've had in there tend to go through waves where they're consistent for a while and then they disappear and then they come back. And that consistency has helped me immensely, because I consistently have much larger content reach on my posts per day because I'm showing up, and people know to look for me because it's around the same time. It's around the same window of what I'm presenting on and all that stuff. And the other piece of it is the good aspect of it, and seeing the good in the tough moments, because we are going to have to weather the storm, and you have to learn that process. Something that I really appreciate is you have to take each step, because if you're climbing a mountain and you skip one of the parts at the bottom that teaches you how to handle a part at the top, you fall and you die. Right? You need the basic skills to handle the more difficult ones. If you try to jump straight to the boss level, right, you're going to get your butt whooped. You're not going to have the tools to make it through that. So I guess my biggest thing for what I want to know is, How do you create consistency? How do you go about looking at your day and going, okay, these are the things that are important now that I want to build consistency with?
Yeah, twofold, man. And I'll get to that in one sec. I want to back up and say, you know, some of the things we worked with, I tell guys coming in, hey, there's 14 of you coming into this growth group. A year from now, there'll probably be 4 or 5 of you. Be one of those guys, because I see it time and time again, man. So you have to have that long-term vision, I think, number one, and that grit. And that just comes from inside, man, that drive. Same thing that when your alarm goes off at 5, you don't feel like getting up and going to the gym, you do it. You have to have that same grit. Now, I think we can have systems, and this is to answer your question, that make it a lot easier. So for me, I have 2. Number one, man, we're coming up to the end of the month, and I do this every single month religiously and have for about 4.5 years. I do what's called a monthly audit. I put a YouTube video on this too, and I can shoot it over to anybody who wants it. But dude, it's just an awesome process. My notebook's right down here, where I just take 30 to 40 minutes, and nobody's around me, not my kids, my wife. It's me and a notebook, no phone. And I outline the areas of my life that I'm going to win at. So for me, that's faith, that's fitness, that's family, that's finances and business, and friendships. And I spend 10 minutes on each category, and I say, okay, what faith? To have a world-class faith this month, what's it look like? Okay, man, the minimum is we go to church every week. I open my Bible every night. Okay, what's a system to open my Bible every night? Okay, if you turn the camera around right now, my Bible's on my pillow. So I can't get into bed without my Bible being there. Okay, that's my reminder to read one chapter. So that's creating these little systems, right? When I go down that list, fitness. Dude, it was, when I was training for the Murphs, it was like, okay, here's the goals this month. Okay, now let's work backwards. So what do we need to do each week? What do we need to do each day? What's that look like? Okay, family. Man, I want to take my daughter on a one-on-one daddy date a couple times a month. Let's get that on the calendar. Let's be super intentional about going towards what we're going towards. So that's the first thing, is that monthly audit. Then I take that a step further, and before I go to bed every single night without fail, you'll never find, I don't care if I meet a buddy, I don't get home till 1 a.m. and I got to get up at 5, I will take 3 minutes and outline my next day. 100%. I only plan 1 tweet a day. That first tweet that goes out at 5:30 or 6 in the morning will be in there. I'll fire that to my engagement group. It's the same routine every day. I wake up at the same time. I chug 2 waters. I take my multivitamin. I scoop a creatine. I take about 5 or 10 minutes, just quiet time with the Lord. I visualize myself that day, how I want to win. I already know what I'm training before I get up that day, or if it's a rest day and a walk and a stretch day. Whatever it is, it's already decided before. Then I come back home. It's already decided what I'm going to work on that day, right? So I don't show up and say, okay, I got an hour. What am I going to do? Let me go to Twitter. Now I'm reading about freaking aliens, and I'm distracted for an hour, right? On Twitter. No. Like, I know from 10 to 11 today, I'm working on this. I'm finishing up my thread. I know from 11 to 11:50 today, I'm on a podcast with you. I know at 11:52, I'll be out the door to pick up my boys. I know I'll be back home at 11. I could go down, my whole day today is already done. To as far out as at 4:30 tonight, I'll be at the park across the street. We got a new light up basketball, and me and my boys are going to go fire that around, take a soccer ball too. So things don't happen by accident in my life anymore. I got super intentional and said, these are the areas I'm going to win at. What does winning look like in those areas? Let's define it. And now let's put systems into place and a daily schedule to ensure we're winning at these things. I don't have a choice. So I don't wake up at 5 and say, do I feel like doing this today? Do I feel like doing content again today for the 980th day in a row? I don't know, man. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, my goals are here, and that's where I'm shooting towards. And to me, that's just a better way to live, to sort of have a plan. I don't think any good general, I don't think any good company, any good CEO wakes up and says, what do we want to try and sell today? What do we want to try and do? Well, you're the CEO of your life. You're the CEO of your family. So what does that look like then in your life to make those things happen?
No, I love that. Speaking of definitions, I've got a question for you. How would you define greatness?
Man, I think greatness is reaching your potential, right? So I think of David Goggins a lot. He had this 2-minute clip where he said, man, I died. And he said, I pictured myself dying. And he said, God, my maker, showed me, you know what, David Goggins, you were squashing bugs for a job. And then you died of a heart attack in your 40s because you were morbidly obese. That's what you did. Hey, come here. Let me show you what I created you to do. let me show you the billion people that you could have inspired. Let me show you what you were supposed to do. And man, I remember the first time I saw that interview, dude, I cried, to be honest, because I said, holy cow, I'm in the same boat. I got a good life, a comfortable life, but I'm not pushing. And I'm going to die someday, and God's going to say, hey, man, you were supposed to reach this many people. You were supposed to impact. You're supposed to have this kind of on-fire relationship. You're supposed to do this and this. Oh, man, and that scared me a lot, to be honest. And so to me, greatness is making a choice every single day to try and get the most out of your potential. And that looks different for different people, man. Not all of us can be billionaire entrepreneurs like Elon Musk. Not all of us can be whatever. But dude, if you're called to be a bank manager, and that's what you're supposed to, then you be the best, most intentional bank manager you can, right? Whatever that thing is, you are striving all the time to be better and better and better and better. That's what greatness is like to me.
I love that. I think that's very much what I see it as too, is it's fulfilling your potential to be the best version of yourself you possibly can, and whatever that means as far as what you're pursuing. There's something you can be great at. It doesn't mean you have to be the number one person. Like, that's not greatness. It's being the best possible version of yourself in the thing that you're pursuing. And I want to shift gears a little bit as we begin to wind down, because I know you've got to get to picking up your kids here in a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit about managing those who aren't in the arena, in the great Twitter space, or X space as we call it, and all of the negativity, and still remaining positive. Because one of the challenges I see often is people just want to rile you up. They want to push buttons. They want to be Mr. or Mrs. Negative. Talk to me about how you combat that and continue to move your needle forward in the midst of all of the negative comments and chaos and just people being just at their worst.
Yeah, two guys, man, impacted my life more than anybody. One is, his name's Colby, and he's a personal trainer. And when I was 28 or 29 years old, I weighed 149 pounds soaking wet, and I've never lifted weights, man. And I didn't really even know, like if I went to the gym, I'd hop on a treadmill or maybe do bench press. That's like the only things I really knew, And I remember meeting this guy one night, and I was off a divorce and in a really bad spot in life, and just drinking 5-6 nights a week. But I was always friendly, pretty friendly guy. And so I meet this guy out of friends of a friend, and he looks me in the eye. It's like midnight. And he goes, hey, Ty, would you want to come work out with me? And I was probably complaining about something, just kind of usual stuff, right? And he goes, you want to come work out with me tomorrow? And this guy's built like a Greek god, man, just like chiseled head to toe. And I said, well, I don't know, man. I don't really know what I'm doing. He goes, well, I'll teach you. And I said, okay, man, I'll meet you. He said, we meet at 4:30 in the morning. I said, brother, that's 4.5 hours and I'm drunk. He said, be there. Here's the address. I said, all right, man, I'll go home right now and I'll be there. Dude, I showed up to that gym, and that guy would literally run circles around the gym, high five the janitors, thank them for working hard, cleaning the gym. This was the most energetic and positive man I ever met. And I actually interned for free at that gym for 8 months. And I was still playing poker at the time, but 3 days in of lifting with him and his buddies, I said, hey, man, I want to be like you. I said, you're the most positive guy I've ever met. Can I just be around you guys? He said, yeah, show up every day at 4:30. And then that's when I got really into fitness, man. And I put on 15 pounds of muscle over the next few years with these guys, lifted with him. He's one of the best trainers. Really, he trained Chicago Bears players, but for some reason, this guy took me under his wing. And I'll never forget, the first time we squatted, I couldn't do the bar, man. Like with good form, I couldn't do the bar. And he's loading on 4 and 5 plates, but they never put me down. Him in the circle of blood. There was one guy that played in the NFL there. They just always, Ty, you got this, man. Next week you'll be doing that. You're great, man. Keep showing up. And just being around this group of Colby and his buddies. Wes was another one. Lauren was another one. These guys, I was around them for 1 year. And just, dude, that took my positivity level. And so whenever I think back to somebody's in a bad spot or really negative, I want to be Colby to somebody else, right? And I know that if they come at me about something, it's not about me. It's about something in them that's missing. So if I post that I love being a great dad and they say, bull crap, you shouldn't be posting this because other people can't be dads and this and that. It's not that they're mad at me for wanting to be a great dad. It's something's missing in their life. The same that I was at that bar at midnight drinking and something was missing. And that dude extended a hand to me and lifted me up. And look where that got to take my life, right? And Similar opportunity, same story, kind of. Eddie Lowen was a preacher who just started meeting me for coffee around that same point in life and pouring into me over and over again, man. Leader of a big church, 6,000 plus person church, time out of his day all the time to just pour into me. And so whenever, negativity happens, to be honest, man, I just feel a big place of empathy. I want us all to win. I think that's possible. We just talked about greatness. I believe everybody, every human on the planet can reach that potential and keep fighting and keep striving to be great. And so even if I can just be a kind word back to somebody, and maybe that sparks something down the road to them. Well, why was this guy so nice to me when everything else is negative? Because it lit something in me when I was around Colby and those positive guys, just day in and day out. All they talked about was positive, great things. And I thought, I want that, And so that's what I try and be now, is just a light and be that guy too.
No, and it's clear that that's just who you are at this point, which is awesome because it's not faked. It's just genuine that you want to see everyone win. And you know that when somebody's hurting, they lash out and it's all about, okay, well, maybe I can help heal that. Or if not, I wish you the best. And you do such a graceful job of stepping away from those moments because it's really easy to feed into it. Cause I'm sure there's times where you're just like, man, you just pushed so many buttons and I just want to,
There's definitely days where I just have to log off, man. When people say negative things about your family or like attack your son for maybe looking different than you or say some really hateful things, like, yeah, I'll block a couple of those. I've actually though, I've reached out to some people in the DMs that have said really hateful things and actually shot a video and said, hey brother, I don't know why you're hurting to say something like this, but I just want you to know I'm going to pray for you. And if you ever need to chat, I'm here. And I've actually had a couple of those guys reach back and say, yeah, just this or that and this. And one was a back and forth where he ended up following me and we've still chat to this day. It's a year and a half ago, man. And so awesome. You never know the impact you can make, right?
Right. Absolutely. Well, as we begin to wind down here, I want to give you an opportunity. I want people to connect with you to be able to follow your journey. And if they're not already following you, know where to find you. So go ahead and leave where they can connect with you easiest. And if you got anything else positive to leave them with, something that you kind of work through your day that is your mantra, I'd love to hear it. Let's send them off in the right way.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, again, man, I'm honored to be on here. And Charles, you're a guy who, dude, I look forward to where you're going to go, man. You were a gracious guest on my podcast too. And I remember my editor, Alex, shout out to Alex, love him. He watched ours and he goes, dude, we need to have him back on. He goes, I was just getting into it. So everything you say, man, I feel like you're such a high integrity, great guy too, man, that I look up to a lot, man. So honor to be on here, man. Thanks for having me. You can find me at Ty Romper on Twitter. That's obviously the best place. I got 180 some thousand followers on there. Come join the team. If you click those links, you'll find I'm on YouTube. We're closing in on 9,000 subscribers over there. I put out a lot of free content just to help people. YouTube was spawned from I just get 15 DMs a day asking the same questions. So I thought, well, I'm gonna help people. I don't have time to respond to everybody, so now I can just click and send videos. So yeah, I put a ton of free content over there, just around mindset, daily habits, a lot of the stuff we talk about. I put up over there. That's just my name, Tyler Todt, T-O-D-T. But links to my free newsletter, all kinds of stuff on Twitter. It's probably the best place to start to connect. And the word I would leave anybody watching this with, man, is just to get super intentional with your life. Maybe you're not in the spot you want to be right now. Maybe you're watching this and thinking, well, I wish I had that time that they're talking about, or I wish I had better physique, or whatever that thing is. I promise you that the universe is rigged in such a way that if you genuinely say, I'm going to wake up every day and get better at that thing, I don't care if I feel like it or not. And that's why I say you're one committed decision away always from changing your entire life and writing any story in the best chapter of your life from here on out. So pause a moment today, invest 44 cents into a little notebook like I did. Start to write out your goals. Start to write the areas of your life you're going to win at. Decide some things you might need to leave behind to win at those things. And then connect with like-minded guys like Charles, like myself. Get surrounded by people where that's the norm. Getting up and working out every day is the norm. Being a great dad and a husband's the norm. Find guys in community that are like that and just keep leveling up from there.
Love it. Well, Ty, thank you so much. I'll make sure all of the information on how to get a hold of you and connect with you ends up in the show notes. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I love the conversations. I will absolutely come back anytime you want me on your show.
I need you to come back, man.
Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be great. We'll have an awesome conversation. But yeah, have a wonderful rest of your day. Go get those boys. As always, guys, keep reaching for the stars. Fall flat on your face. Remember, whenever we fall, always get up. Thank you for joining us today on the Edge of Greatness podcast. If you haven't yet, please take a minute now to subscribe and review our show. Join us again next week as we continue to dig deeper into the key components of greatness. The path to greatness is never linear, so remember to keep pursuing greatness no matter what. Keep stretching your abilities, reach for the stars, and fall flat on your face. But remember, no matter what happens, whenever we fall, always get up. Until next time, I'm Charles Schultz, and this was the Edge of Greatness podcast.